We'll reconvene from closed meeting at 6:25 p.m. I just want to thank you all for your patience and apologize for keeping y'all all waiting. If you will join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States and Texas flags. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, we'll have the invocation be given by Mr. Jeff Martin, Board Trustee.
Father God, we first and foremost, we thank you for this ability to come together tonight. I thank you, Father, for each and every man and woman that's in this room. We thank you, Father, for the leadership of our district, Dr. Jackson, his administrative team, every single staff and student in Porte ISD, Father God. We ask you continue to provide a hedge of protection around each and every one of them, our families, our businesses, our community as a whole. Please bless our time together tonight, Father God. Give us wisdom and discernment to make wise decisions for the betterment of our district, for our community. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, Mincy. Okay, we'll go to item 5, public comments. The board will now hear those who wish to make comments and have completed and returned the public comment participation request. This section will be conducted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act and board policy. Complaints and concerns for which other resolution channels are provided shall be directed through those channels. Ms. Thompson, were there any?
No, sir, there was not.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to item 6, consent agenda. A, consider approval of resolution 2021-24, amending the amount for committed fund balance for the year ending June 30, 2021. Seek a motion. Mr. Shoppy made a motion.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Green. And so we'll call for the vote. Okay. Thank you. We go to item 7, action and/or discussion items. A, approve the comprehensive annual financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Our auditors here will make a presentation in just a minute, but I wanted to introduce my staff real quickly before the auditor comes up. So we have a unofficial motto coined by Carolyn Stratton in the business office, and it's called, "Is this a great place to work or what?" And they are a great team. I'm going to tell you how long each one of them have been there, but they're just a great team. They're always willing to step up. We have accounting changes all the time, forever and ever, and they just do what they need to do to get done. We're ancillary to the education process in the campuses, and we're just there to serve them the best we can. So not everybody can make it tonight. I'm going to introduce them all anyway. Sheila Cantu is our Director of Finance. And she was our purchasing coordinator. She started with the district in 2009, and she started as Director of Finance in 2019.
Well, then ask her to stand so everybody can see.
George Crandall, you may remember him as the former orchestra director. He is now an accountant in our office. He started with the district in 2019 and has been in the business office since 2021. And he's a great addition. Mcgee. She's our bookkeeper. She started in the district in 2013 and has been our bookkeeper all that time. She's our payroll coordinator. She started with the district in 1994 as a substitute for 10 years, and then she moved to payroll in 2004. Cynthia Monte, I don't think is here, right? She's one of our payroll specialists. She started with the district in 2006 and has been in payroll the entire time. Lupe Lara is another payroll specialist. She started with the district in 2004 and has been in payroll since 2008. Lindley Marler is our purchasing manager, and she started in 2019. Leslie Atkins? She's the purchasing specialist and my assistant, and keeps me in line a lot. Sorry. She started with the district in 2012, but she's been in the business office since 2018. Carolyn Stratton isn't here, right? And she's our accounts payable lead, and she started with the district in 1998 as accounts payable.
Wow.
She's been here longer. Teresa Orlando is accounts payable specialist, and she started with the district in 2006, and she's been in accounts payable the whole time. Karen Sexton was unable to be here. She's our PEMS coordinator. She started with the district in 1994 and has been the PEMS coordinator since 2014. Elizabeth Hutchins is also unable to be here. She's the student support specialist. She works closely with Karen, and she started with the district in 2012. Now, she was with the district formerly, and I don't know if she was gone a year or 2 years and then came back, but when she came back in student support. Andy Garcia. He's our newest member to the business office. He's a database administrator, and he started with the district in 2021 in August.
Awesome.
Tracy Thompson. Our database administrator, and she started with the district in 2007 and has been a DBA since 2015. So that is the best team. They're great. So I wanted to introduce them so that and then I want to introduce Stephanie Harris. She's our auditor from Bell, Terrace, and Pahachik, and she's going to present the audit report to you.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much. And I just would like to start by echoing those comments. You have an incredible business office and team here. We're working with a number of districts as you recognize all the disruptions COVID has caused in the last two academic and fiscal years. We have a number that will not meet the November 27th filing deadline. So I would just like to commend everyone here and all the efforts made to ensure that the district met the deadline. All right, and with that, page 17, if you were to look at a copy of the comprehensive annual financial report, is our official report to the board. Very important to say that we are issuing a clean, unmodified opinion on the district's financial statements. Again, unmodified being the highest level of assurance we can provide as the independent auditor that the financial statements are materially correct and that all disclosures required by generally accepted accounting principles have been included. Page 33. This is the statement of net position for the district. This particular statement and the next one are full of full, simply meaning as accountants we have picked up all of the district's long-term assets and long-term liabilities. The idea would be to present your operations as if you were trying to make a profit. Total assets for the 2021 fiscal year, and I'm going to round these numbers, were just over $438.5 million. The district ended the year with total liabilities of just over $405.6 million, leaving you with an overall total positive net position of $28.9 million. If you were to look within management's discussion and analysis, there's some nice tables that provide comparative presentation to the prior year. You would see that there was an overall both decrease in total assets as well as total liabilities for the district as you continue to depreciate capital assets and spend down bond proceeds, as well as make a significant reduction in your overall long-term debt. The district successfully refunded some old Series 2014 bonds during the year, and as a result, you were able to reduce future debt service by just over $17.7 million. Page 35, this is a statement of activities, again full of full, so there's things like depreciation expense. For the 2021 fiscal year, the district incurred just over $181.7 million in total expenses to provide all the academic functions during the year. You collected direct charges for services of just over $657,000, operating grants and contributions, and these would be those that are restricted to a particular program or function, of $10.2 million. After general revenues, which include both property and any state aid as well as investment earnings, you had an overall net reduction for the year of $12.1 million. Some of the contributing factors to that included additional recapture costs, as well as the district's contribution to advance refund the debt during the year. Page 40 and 41, the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for all the district's governmental funds. This particular presentation is modified accrual, also the same basis by which you annually adopt the operating budget. For the 2021 fiscal year, the district had total revenues of just over $168.3 million, total expenditures, which included capital outlay and debt service, just over $174.7 million. After some other financing sources and uses, which included the issuance of debt, as well as some interfund transfers, you saw an overall reduction in your ending fund balance for the year of $5.8 million. Would like to note, though, however, that reduction was planned. You did plan to use additional funds in the debt service fund towards the refunding, as well as additional bond proceeds for various capital projects within the capital projects fund. The general fund itself saw an overall increase in fund balance of just over $1.4 million. You ended the year with $55.7 million. One of the benchmarks we like to highlight that is often used to evaluate the health of a particular government would be ending fund balance in relation to your annual operating expenditures. And you generally want to see a benchmark of 25% or 3 months in your ending fund balance. The district's ending fund balance of $55.7 million does represent just over 43% of your 2021 annual operating expenses. So you ended the year in a very strong and healthy position. Additionally, we did conduct a single audit in addition to your financial statement. Again, a single audit is necessary when you have federal grant expenditures in excess of $750,000. If you were to flip all the way to the back to page 185, you can see all the federal grant program activity for the 2021 fiscal year. For 2021, we tested the special education cluster as well as education stabilization fund. Very pleased to say, based on that testing, we have also issued an unmodified opinion with regards to the district's compliance with its federal program grant activity. That concludes my remarks. We appreciate the opportunity to be of service to the district, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
I got a question on page 7. It references that our district has, for the last 18 years, got a superior financial rating from PEA. My question is, how much does your fund balance go into that equation? Did they factor that in?
Yeah, and we are actually going to have our public hearing on that next month in the December 7th meeting. It does, but it's looking at what she said, 25%. And there's a whole lot of factors, and there's a point value for each one, or there's a yes or no answer. But we'll go through it in detail.
That is an excellent question, and one thing I often like to point out that I did not mention earlier was that the district goes above and beyond the requirement for financial statements. What's required is simply to have an annual audit and produce an annual financial report. However, the district has decided to go above and beyond and present a comprehensive annual financial report, which includes a lot more analytical information in the back in the form of statistical data as well as transmittal letter. And it does submit this particular set of financial statements to 2 award programs, and very pleased to say that the 2020 CAFR, or Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, did receive the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Excellence for financial reporting, as well as one from ASBO for their particular Certificate of Excellence for financial reporting.
I have a question and probably a definite comment after this, but I just want to make sure on page 40, where it says contracted instructional services between schools, the $48 million, is that our recapture?
Yes.
Because my comment is, and for everybody that may be listening, and for everybody in the audience, our recapture is $48,381,443. That's nearly almost $5 million more than it than it is that we spend on instruction for our children here in LaPorte at $43,510,443. So for every taxpayer in LaPorte ISD, know that even though you may be paying taxes to the school district, we're having to write a check out to the state legislature in Austin, picking up more money than it is as far as educating the students of our district, LaPorte ISD, which is, to me, is a travesty in my opinion. But anyway, that's my comment. I'm sorry. So,
Don't be sorry.
no.
I have a question, and I don't know if this is maybe for Rhonda, but, because I'm the new guy. We had a reduction of the fund balance of $5.8 million. You said that was planned. And a typical given, how much of that is planned? And what would we expect that loss, or is it more a break even in a regular year? I know we're in COVID still, so I'm not. On average, what does that look like when it's not planned to take out the extra millions?
So each fund kind of stands alone, and the capital projects fund is what mainly made up that loss in the debt service fund. So as you recall back in, well, I think you probably weren't here, but back in February we did a refunding. And so we had to pay some advance interest on that refunding. Basically what the interest would accrue from February until the payment was due in August. Normally that payment would have been made in August. So that was our debt service plan use. Our capital projects, when we didn't sell any bonds last year, so we're always going to have a negative balance in capital projects if we're not selling bonds, because that's revenue that's sitting there that was already earned in prior years when we sold the bond. Does that answer your question?
I'm an Aggie, so I'm a little slow.
Hey,
What, I guess my question is, like, so if you're gonna build, like, what do we expect to lose in thousands or millions or whatever it is on an annual basis, right? So we talked at the meeting last week about, I believe you said, and I probably didn't hear it right, but I thought you said we would run out of money if we don't do something in December, like it's gonna
Okay,
exhaust
so
itself.
that's
So I'm trying to
the
figure
general
out.
fund. And right now, we didn't lose money in the general fund. And we're actually gonna talk about that in a presentation. And so if you wanna just table that for just a few minutes, we will discuss that in more detail,
Okay,
if that's okay.
sure.
Board, do y'all have any further questions? No?
It's always good to hear that the financials are solvent, and not only solvent, but superior at that. And so, I say kudos to Rhonda and her team, along with you. And, I think the school district has been in very good financial shape for a very long time. And so, Rhonda, we publicly thank you and your entire team, and the entire administrative team, for the work that you do along with this board. So I want to publicly commend you for the work that you do. And we appreciate you for going through it all and kind of being able to tell us where our strengths and weaknesses are.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just to make it clear, Melissa's the only one that gets to be new.
Hey,
Everybody else been here a
She said I've been
year.
here. It feels like 15 years, it's been 5 months.
Okay, I didn't have a question.
Okay, Kathy, I know you had made a motion to approve, so I'm assuming you reiterate the motion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Move to approve.
And Ms. Thompson, second. Boyd, we'll call for the vote. Thank y'all, everyone. Thank you for,
Thank y'all.
thank y'all for y'all's help effort. And it is passed unanimous. And for the record, for those who may be listening on consent agenda A, it did pass unanimously as well. Forgot to mention that as well. So now we go to 7B, bond exploration update.
So we'll ask Rhonda to come up and share some information, and I'll certainly encourage the board to ask all of those questions and more. And in the presentation, hopefully we can answer many of those things and clarify them.
Okay. I'm gonna go through this quickly to ask any questions you want. When I talk about fund balance uses and funds, we can talk about the question you asked. First thing is tax rate, then bond debt, then the fund balance, and the use of bond funds. Now, some of this is a repeat from our meeting, but I wanted to give you opportunity to ask questions that maybe we talked about in the meeting, but it wasn't really cohesive for you to ask questions. rate is two components. We have the debt service or interest and sinking INS tax rate, and we have the maintenance and operations and minor tax rate. The interest and sinking provides funds for payments on the debt that finances the district's facilities. So when we sell bonds, then those payments are used, we raise taxes to cover those payments when the debt comes due. We make debt payments, we make interest payments in August, we make principal and interest payments in February of every year. And that's kind of because our tax revenue starts coming in January, so we can make those payments for our principal and our interest and have plenty of money to make those in February, because our tax money's in. Simplistically, how it's calculated, and this is very simplistically because you know nothing's easy, but based on the tax base and the amount of debt owed for the tax year is how the debt rate's calculated. Now, there are some exceptions. We can tax extra pennies on debt service if we want to retire future debt or those kind of things. Those would be planned tax increases on the debt service. But that's how the interest is sinking rate. The maintenance operation provides funds for maintenance and operations. So that's our basic thing. That's salaries, that's utilities, that's classroom supplies, anything that would be part of the operations of the district. It's calculated using the maximum compressed rate now with House Bill 3, and that's calculated, we have to go on TA website and put in a bunch of data, and then they calculate it, and by August 5th, they have to give us what our maximum compressed rate is. And of course, our tax base keeps growing so far, and so our maximum compressed tax rate keeps decreasing. And then we also add on any available pennies that we have above that. So there's up to 17 available pennies. 5 of them have been approved, and the other 12 cents we're using as a disaster rate penny. So we are taxing the extra 17 cents as well.
How long do you anticipate the disaster rate being in place?
So it depends on if we have a disaster. And so next year with the disaster, we had a hurricane plus we had the ice storm, we could still tax next year at that rate. But I can't foresee what will happen in the future if we can still do that.
You mean you don't have a
You
crystal
don't
ball
have that,
or
Chris?
what? You don't have a crystal ball that, okay.
It's something they threaten to take away every year, every 2 years in the legislature. And they tinkered with it this last time. The pandemic doesn't count, the ice storm does, so we're good for another year, so we'll see what they do.
We just keep on trucking along, so we'll just.
Don't worry, something will happen.
There's
And
been a disaster pretty much every year for the last however long. so,
There has.
Yeah.
And the good thing for us is now the legislature doesn't meet until 2023 because they just met, so at least we're okay for next year. We already know there's a disaster, they can't change anything. So we're good. All right. All right, our debt service balance as of 6/30/21 I put 31, but I really know there's only 30 days in June. I'm sorry. Our debt service balance is $315,810,000. Our final payment will be February 2039. Our total principal and interest due through that period of time is $412,460,334.
But there may be other opportunities in the future for us to.
There's always opportunities for refunding. It just depends on when it's time, and we're constantly, we have a financial advisor, they're constantly watching that, telling us what the markets are doing, and we're in contact with them. Our February 2021, which Ms. Harris referenced, tax refunding saved our taxpayers. It doesn't save us, it saves our taxpayers, because all that is money paid strictly from a tax rate. $17,737,796 in future interest payments.
17 million.
Million. I'm sorry. It's that number. Our current debt service tax rate for this year is 24 cents. So I'm just going to go over what each fund is for and how that fund balance works within that fund. So first we have the general fund. That's our main fund. That's where mainly all of our operations take place for the most part. We do have some special revenue funds, but we have as of June 30th, got it right there, we have $55,795,670. Now, she did say it's recommended we have 3 months of fund balance to operate. But if you recall, school districts can have a June year end and they can have an August year end. We have a June year end. So it's a little bit misleading. In my opinion, I'm just gonna tell you the world according to Rhonda. If you have an August year end, you're a lot closer to when that tax dollars start coming in. If you have a June year end, you're 2 months further away. So really, 3 months may not be enough if you're not having any other revenue come in.
Right.
Being a Chapter 41 district, we get our state revenue up front. That's around $3 million. I mean, our expenses in a general month are, just our payroll alone is in excess of $6 million. So that's just kind of like, you know, a little bit of, here we're, TA will give this to you. It doesn't really make a lot of big impact on us.
We give you 3, you give us 48.
Right.
I don't like this game.
Right. But we'll give it to you at the beginning of the year, and you don't have to give us yours till the end of the year.
Wonder why we're using the June 30th as a reference point, not.
Because that's the audit, so that's the date, all of our financials are recorded. So now our fund balance is not gonna change until we do an audit next June. Our year end is June 30th. So we have to look at the money we have at June 30th, and it has to get us through till January, when our tax money comes in. Well, technically, we get some in December, but it's not delinquent until January 1st. So those that really wanna hold on to their money aren't gonna turn loose of it till January. So our unassigned fund balance, which is really what we have to work with because our others are committed or assigned to other things, is $51,817,899. So our primary source is our tax income. Our tax rate this year is 1.0165. Our expenditures include, I kind of went over that, our daily operations, except for some federally funded stuff, and some of those cross as well. The fund balance of the general fund is controlled by and retained for the use of the local education agency. So anything in our fund balance, we get to retain and use. Our local governing body, you all, has wide discretion in the use of the funds as long as it's provided by law. So the general fund is basically the main fund for us. The others are not as material, except for your debt service and your capital projects. That's pretty important. But your special revenue funds, we get federal revenue, but those are usually small amounts considered.
So it's not a fund, that general fund's not, the revenue does not go into that every month, I guess is what I'm.
Correct. So the main bulk of our revenue goes into that fund in December, January, and February. And even our 313 agreements, we don't get till January because they pay them in lieu of taxes, but they're not really due until January. And there's not really a delinquency on them, but we have good partners, they all pay.
So Rhonda, you've said it, and it's very clear, but it's important for everybody that's hearing this to understand the fund balance is not that we are some wealthy, right, Hollywood school district that's got all of this money hanging around. It's to take care of the operations of the school district if and when things are not going well in the case of a disaster and those kinds of things, and when revenue is not coming in. Because I think people look at that big number, or could look at that big number, and say, this district is not in bad financial shape, and we're not in bad financial shape. But that money is not really a slush fund. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Is it also fair to say that that's about half the money we have allocated? I mean, there's a bunch of different pools, not just that general fund?
So yes, we're gonna go through that. Is it half the money we have in our total fund balance? So on our audit, we have 98 million across all funds. So 55 million of that is a little more than half of that.
Well, I saw in the financial report from last month, the total was 101 million.
Well, and that changes from month to month. So, any other questions on this one?
Well, I'm guessing though you can allocate, right? Like we got into a position, you can take money that you wanted to, but we shuffle it around, right? So the full picture is that that's not just our only account.
That's not the only account that
Got it.
Right. But it's kind of like, if you think of it, if you want to think of it as a business, it's kind of like you have a whole bunch of different funds, so they're kind of like separate and apart from each other. So they're not, the funds aren't commingled, if that makes sense. It's kind of like a bunch of subsidiaries of one company. Not exactly, but similar. So our debt service fund balance on June 30th was $7,478, 78,866. So we ended in June with that fund balance, but then we have to turn around and make an interest payment in August. So our actual fund balance after we make that interest payment is $2,394,476. So it's important that when we end the year in June, we have enough to cover the cost of our August payment. Now, we don't have to really cover the cost of our August payment because hopefully we'll get enough in tax revenues. So when we plan our tax rate, we plan on what we're going to need for February and August instead of August and February. If that makes sense. It accounts for payments of principal, interest, and related fees on the district's general obligation bonds. The revenue is from a designated allocation of the property tax rate, and only these debt service payments can be charged to these funds. We can't use that money for anything except debt service payment. Any questions on debt service? Capital projects fund balance as of June 30th from our bond proceeds was $23,319,498. From our tax increment reinvestment zone, it was $4,143,992. So our tax increment reinvestment zone is money that we receive in partnership with the city. There's a reinvestment zone that the taxes that are paid within that zone, we pay to the city, and then they give us back part of that money for projects.
Rhonda, a question on with the exception from from the TERS, from the bond okay. The debt service fund balance is coming from the INS tax rate. Right. Okay. My other question is, so that capital projects fund, combine that, it's 27.4 million, something around there. Is that already encumbered, I guess? Or is that just if we...
Some of it is encumbered. The baseball
And softball.
Fields that we're working on. I think those are the only projects we're working on right now. And then we have some that's set aside for transportation. I think we still have some that's for fine arts. And then technology and facility maintenance is ongoing. So that's used on a monthly basis.
Now, I just want to have an idea of how much of that is unencumbered, I guess, in case of any, when we're looking at bond planning.
I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head what the baseball and softball fields are going to cost, but generally, probably about $5 million is used for technology and maintenance, and that's just kind of a guess.
Okay.
I mean, I could go back and find that out, but I'm just kind of guessing from.
Well, this is probably a really silly question. I apologize for all the questions tonight, but when we did the last bond, was the tax rate not to exceed $1.42, somewhere around there?
Yeah, I think it was 41 cents.
41. Okay, so if I'm doing the math,
So the dollar is part of the M&O, so it wasn't to exceed, just the debt rate wasn't to exceed.
I got you.
41
The combined rate M&O and I remember it was it was not to exceed $1.45 the total. Okay.
So we're far from
then,
that.
Well, correct, because at
Right.
that time, the M&O rate was $1.04.
Right,
That's
and
changed
I know
with
we-
compression, so any compression changes every year.
we
so
were
you
able to
can't
go
really say.
3 cents under, so it was $1.42.
I got you. So my question is, like, so it's as we said this year, it's at $1.25 or almost $1.26, right? How much do we have? Do we have any ability to adjust that accordingly up to a higher amount before calling for a bond, or is that now that we've exhausted those?
So
How does
the-
that work exactly?
The debt rate can be taxed up to 50 cents. The M&O rate, we don't have flexibility over.
Got it. I mean, how much would that impact? I mean, would we have to call for a bond if we were to go to the max on that?
Yes,
Yes.
because that money can only be used to pay debt. So we can tax at the maximum amount, but we have to then use it to pay off all our debt. Now, we could tax at the maximum to pay off all our debt and then do a bond saying, okay, we don't have any debt.
And I'm not certain that we would be able to do all of the things that we talked about in the first place with that.
Right,
in that
well,
process.
yeah, we would have to consult our attorneys and stuff, but we can, we can tax for, advanced refunding of debt, but there are rules on that as well.
With that $1.45 you're talking about, was there a timeline set on that, like that with that last bond? Or is it forever we can tax it? Yeah.
No, that just was related to the 2014
bond.
bond.
To that bond.
And you never got past, what, $1.25?
We taxed at 41 cents for 2 years within that,
Came back down.
but most of the time it's been in the 20 cents.
Yeah.
And I could get those exact numbers for you too, but I can't remember all that on
Yeah.
the top of my head.
I just remember the total. That was the total.
Yes, 41 cents was
Yeah.
the max.
Yeah.
Any other questions before I move on? Okay, so the last group of funds is our non-major funds, and they're mainly local funds for a specific purpose, food service funds, campus activity funds, and federal funds. And the fund balance on those was $4,568,498. So on our federal funds, there's no fund balance. Because our federal funds, we get reimbursed as we spend them. So that'd be like Title I, which is for our economically disadvantaged mainly, or our at-risk mainly. At-risk is more correct. We have a bilingual federal fund. We have our ESSER money that's federal, which is a lot more flexible than most of our title money. We have teacher and principal training. We have IDEA B, which is SPED. So, and those are all separate funds, including our campus activity account funds or separate funds. The money that teachers get on the Education Foundation, it's a separate fund. So, there's a lot of funds in those non-major funds. If you look in the audit report to the back where you see it, you can see them all listed out and what their titles are. Any questions on those? Okay, this is just the same slide I showed, showing you, like, the general fund is the first one. That's how much of our fund balance is going to be used before our tax dollars start coming in. So and this is an estimate of how much we'll use in capital projects. Now, capital projects is only funded as we sell bonds. We've sold all the bonds that are available to be sold now. There are no bonds that we can sell. Now, we can refund them, but that just changes our debt structure. And generally, we only refund them if it's going to cause a savings for the taxpayer. Okay, and what do bonds pay for? Maintenance of a facility, technology, transportation, fine arts, capital projects, buildings, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. And that's all. Any questions?
What's the other question? Like, what do we expect? What on a typical year? What is our budget? We trying to zero it out, or do we expect to lose a couple $1 million a year?
So,
Profit? Like, what is?
Our budget this year, I think we're, I look at that every month and I can't remember. But I can pull it up here and tell you.
Do we operate on a deficit?
I'm wondering if with ESSER funds we broke even or if there is a deficit. I can't remember. But I can pull it up.
I guess my other question is, so on the slide it shows like what it's going to show, like the remaining balance after we deplete it from now to January. But in January, how much money comes in? Are we going to look at like $60 million balance? Like, what would it jump up
Oh,
to?
no, 100 and some million coming.
Really?
There's a lot of people paying their taxes at the same
Yeah.
time. It tapers off
We-
toward the end.
We start getting money filtering in December, and then in January we get a whole lot, and then February we get some. And then we're always collecting like delinquent taxes after that, but our total taxes coming in is over 100 million.
And that sounds like a whole lot, but after you have to send 50 million back.
Half of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct?
Send half to the general fund of the Texas legislature so they can balance their budget. I'm sorry, did I overstep?
Paying a state income tax. reports to
No,
them.
that's a whole other,
That's what it is.
yeah.
Extortion.
Yeah.
Chris, just let me know if I'm going out of bounds, okay?
That was okay.
Okay. Just rein me in.
I'm not sure about.
Okay, so I'll pull up our budget and see what we budgeted. And all this is online on our webpage, on our financial transparency.
I guess what I'm getting at, Ron, is like, still trying to formulate my opinion. I know there's certainly a need on the bond, and it's gonna happen sooner or later, but we're trying to determine, at least I'll speak for myself, determine if today, this year is the right time to do it, or we wait a year, how that's gonna work. And the big factor for me is the financials, and hearing that we are financially superior, we have this big balance. I'm just curious to see, like, if we did nothing, I'm not saying I'm advocating for that, I'm just how I make my decision process. If we did nothing, how much could we expect to dip into that fund balance? Because I feel like I'm hearing different stories on that. Like, it's to some people, I feel like, well, we're gonna exhaust the whole thing, but we didn't build that thing overnight. It's taken a long time to get to that $50 million plus
Okay,
reserve.
but one is not the same as the other. They don't cross over. Your bond money is used for your facilities and stuff. Your general fund money is used for your operations. So that comes from a tax levy. The bonds come from selling debt. So those are two different pots of money. Now, can you pay for capital expenditures out of your general fund? Yes. But if you do that, then you're paying capital expenditures on recaptured money, whereas if you pay it on the debt side, that debt money is collected at 100% and that money's not recaptured.
I'm just so willing to bet, as I'm a board member, and I was said in that meeting last week, and to me it's just unclear. I'm not saying nobody's trying to mislead us, but it's unclear when you talk about, well, we're about to lose all this money between now and January, and if you're now saying it's not even relevant, why bring that up if it's not relevant to the bond equation, right?
Well-
Like it.
Okay, so I'm going to answer that question on how I understand it. The only reason I brought it up is because in the last board meeting, you said, well, we have $100 million fund balance. But I was trying to explain how that $100 million fund balance is different pockets of money. It's not $100 million and it's all in the same pot and you just spend it however you need to spend it. And our fund balance will be very large in the general fund when we get to February. Our bond fund balance is continually going down now because we've sold all our bonds. So as we continue to spend money, that money's going down and down and down. So what'll happen is we don't have enough money to support the expenditures we're paying for with bond money in the general fund. We'll lose all that money fast. So once that money's gone, in order to get to our tax collections, we would have to do what's called a tax anticipation note. And I've been in districts that's had to do that. So what you do is you get a note, it's short term, and you borrow money so you can make payroll and do all your expenses until your tax money starts coming in. And generally, you have to do that year after year after year. So, I don't know. So that's why I explained that, is just so you can see that generally we don't use general fund money for things we can do in bond money. If we had to move all that cost, we can't pay for general fund expenses out of bond money, but we can pay for bond expenses out of general fund.
Jeff, one of the things that Rhonda kind of said that it was kind of explained to me, and the math may be a little bit off here, but just an analogy, like if you're paying capital projects out of M&O, you have to raise say $1.40 in taxes to pay for $1 of let's say a pen, as opposed to if you're on the INS side that doesn't have recapture, you raise $1 in taxes to pay for this $1 of a pen. And I may be off by the math a little bit, but so you're raising more taxes to pay for the same item. Does that make?
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I felt like, and again, I'm not saying there was intent behind this. It just felt like we're painting a picture like, well, we got to call for this bond because we were going to run out of money. That's the impression that I got. And that's far from the case based upon the audit and all these different things that we're presented with tonight.
We're going to run out of money in our capital projects fund.
Rhonda, is there any way we could get scenarios of some numbers and just say, if we called a $40 million bond, what would that do to the tax rate? If we called a $20 million bond,
yes.
I'd like to see some scenarios, as far as the implications of, the amount. I'd like to see some scenarios.
Yeah, we've already been working with our financial advisor and looking at that, and so we certainly can get him to run. Just let me know what numbers you want to look at, and he can run them. And we can tell you if we do this much, we can have a flat rate, or it can go up, whatever. Yeah, sure.
I would like to see that, and I'm sure the board would like to see that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We'll get that to you before the next meeting.
Any other questions?
Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you, Rhonda. Appreciate your. We'll go to item C, instructional calendar update.
Board, we asked Ms. Tiller to come, and she's going to talk a little bit about just some opportunities for some flexible calendaring in the current calendar. We're not really presenting to you the new calendar for next year as of yet. This is the current calendar, and we had some discussions about some of the reasons why we want to at least give you some options to consider.
Right. Good evening. This calendar represents the current calendar that we are operating with, that you adopted last January, and then we did adjust earlier this fall to move, the one early out that it was on September the 24th to the Friday because of the UIL, and then we added the October dates. And I thought, oh, why can't I see this? It's because I have my glasses on. All right. What I want to ask you, what I want to present to you, we value our teachers. I think we are all in a 100% agreement there that our teachers are very, very important. And we talked about a lot about the money of the district, but I think our greatest commodity are our children and our teachers. COVID, every single day we realize that we have taken a hit because of this COVID in so many different ways. And whenever our children were out of school for 18 months, then there were a lot of things that happened. And one of the things that happened that we know, we say it over and over and over, is that there was learning loss. And it's not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. Mr. Grammer and I talk all the time about that so many of our students we're trying to reteach them those years of learning how to be students, how to be self-disciplined. And so when we visit with our teachers are tired. And we have made some investments in this district that we're very, very, very proud of. Our instructional coaches are amazing. They're doing a lot of the legwork for our teachers in order to try to close these gaps, try to address these learning losses that they've had. However, all of this takes time. And we have surveyed, officially, we've done official surveys on campuses, we've done unofficial surveys on campuses. I just have conversations with teachers, and I'm going, what can we do for you guys? What would make you feel better? What do you need? And almost every single time, their response is time. And so then we sit down in cabinet, we sit down in curriculum meetings, I sit down with our principals, Jill sits down with her principals, and we rattle our brains. How can we get more time? Whenever I was a campus principal, a lot of times we would hire substitutes to cover the classes so that the teachers would have an opportunity to plan together. Well, guess what we have a huge shortage of? Yeah. So that's a great idea whenever we can get substitute coverage. So looking at this, let me just give you just a little insight onto what I'm requesting for you to think about. Right now, our calendar, we are required by law to have a calendar that is a minimum of 75,600 minutes. Our current calendar is 79,150 minutes, and one of the things we've been very proud of, as we are reminded, we have some kind of a disaster every year. We've already had a storm this year, so we put in ample minutes in our calendar that our students will not, that they will still have their instruction. But at the same time, We also applied and received a 2,100 minute staff development waiver. Now currently, we've only used 1,225 minutes of this 2,100 minute waiver, which would give us 875 more minutes that we could possibly have some early releases. And so that is what I'm proposing to you, is that perhaps we could consider giving our teachers in the spring 3 additional early releases that they could use for their planning purposes, whatever they feel like they need. They may need to just shut the door and, I don't know, grade papers, just take a breath, whatever. These would not be tied, we promise that we would not tie these to any kind of formal planning or anything like that. These are for the teachers. Of course, our instructional coaches would be available if they had questions or needed some support, but these are gifts. These are gifts of minutes to our teachers. Proposing the 3 days, I put little circles around them. February the 18th, that's an early release before we have a professional development day on the 21st, but we thought that perhaps parents might appreciate a kickoff to a long weekend. That's the president's birthday weekend. Then after a spring break, March the 28th, going into the time that they are the crunch time before their testing, and then that's for the EOCs, and then April the 25th, which is that's the week before the STAR testing begins. So, as I said, I just wanted to present this to you to think about and to consider, and if you had some questions of me or Dr. Jackson. Yes.
Dr. Tilley, got a question. So just want to make sure I'm clear on this. The recommendations are April 25th, February 18th, and March 28th, correct?
No, March 8th, yes. February 18th, March 28th, and April 25th.
Okay. On 2 of them, to me, like you have on March 28th, and you have an early release date on March 7th. And my question is, why not make that a full day off on that?
We would not be able to use our waiver, and then we would have to take some of these 79,150 minutes. We have to attend school a minimum of 120 minutes for the day in order to be able to use the waiver. I'm sorry, I did not explain that. They want the kids, we can either use this waiver for a late start or early releases, but they have to come to school and see at least some part of it.
Yeah, my only concern, having kind of worked in as a, teaching a STAR tested subject, is that on the March 28th and April 25th is leading very close up to those testing days. And as a, having taught one of those STAR tested subjects, when you're like coming back from spring break, it is, your 10-day out and things like that, and that's kind of eating into that time for some of those teachers. And the same thing with the April 25th one, and that's why I was kind of looking at rolling those two to the early release days that are already on schedule for that month and make it a full day, as far as if there's something already planned for that early release day. Is there something supposed to be planned on those early release days on the 14th?
It's a breath of fresh air.
Yes, it's just it's just
The only thing
be able
about
to take a
March
breath.
is,
I'm sorry.
when you look at March, you're having, on the 7th, kids are gonna have a half a day. I'm looking at this from a parent perspective.
Sure.
Then your kids are gonna be out the whole next week. You come back and have a full week, and then you come back on a Monday and have another early release day.
Sure.
It's like, are we gonna go to school in March or not? I don't know.
So maybe we don't have one in March,
Right.
I don't know.
This is for your consideration, to give
Yes.
us some feedback.
Jeff, can you speak to that,
You're
please?
gonna throw something. I keep talking.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'll hush.
I don't,
I'll
I just,
speak
I
up
guess
here.
my thought is, and I know y'all put a lot of thought into this and probably put them on Mondays.
But nothing
for a
is set in
reason.
stone, we just gave you
I
some
just,
things.
man, as a parent though, like of a first grader and a third grader, it's just really hard, even for me, like to have my kids, I gotta like find daycare and care for them for a half day in the middle on a Monday. It's just really hard. Like I'd be more willing to take off those on a Friday. I could take a half day and watch my kids.
And we've already changed the calendar, too.
It's just really hard. So I don't know if we can change it this year or not, but I just would ask y'all to consider that next year because you got a lot of bus riders and kids that parents that cannot take off. So what are they going to do? They're sitting at their house or apartments or wherever it may be without supervision on a Monday, and that's just what I have issue with. And I understand that doing it on a Friday, you're going to get people like, well, I'm not going to come at all. So I know that's opening another can of worms. So I don't have the answer. I just don't like the Monday.
But, Mr. Martin, these were just example dates. I mean, I'm not opposed to Fridays. I mean, none of us, I'm gonna be at work. But, you know, just whatever would, help the, help the teachers, help the families.
What-
And we don't wanna create a hardship for
What-
the families. We don't wanna create a hardship for anyone.
Well, let me ask you this. On the, I call it the blue days, January 3rd, January 4th, February 21st, there are student holidays but PD for staff. Do they have to be PDs for the entire day? Can be allotted for teachers to allow them to be in the classroom? Doesn't have to necessarily be something
Yes.
they're required to have to go outside the classroom. I'm just, what's the plan as far as?
I can
yeah.
speak to that.
Okay.
Now, January the 3rd is a work day. And so that will be a day that teachers will be, in secondary would be finalizing grades and, if they haven't taken down their Christmas decorations in their classroom. I mean, just, it's a work day. January the 4th, we're right now talking about doing some, doing a welcome back, a kickstart for the spring semester. So half of the day would be some professional development that is set, and then they would be on their campuses. And so they'd probably be doing some planning together as a team on that day. February the 21st, the model will be that probably 50% of the day will be structured with for the content areas with the instructional coaches, and then they will be doing campus PLCs planning on those on that day. And conference, yeah, and elementary does the conferences.
I'll tell you, before we even started talking about the calendar, the last half day that we had, I ran into one of our teachers in the district, and I was just like, enjoy your half day, and she was like, yeah, we're gonna have, a lot of this time dedicated to things that are planned out for us. I just need some time in my class. And, so the need is there, we know it's there, it's what days do they want? Like, if we're really gonna do this for them and how it works for them, what works best for them? I'd be interested to get some feedback directly from our teachers themselves.
We can certainly ask that.
Ms. Tilly?
Now, go ahead, Dan.
I'm sorry if I missed the boat here, but tonight, are we not only discussing the 3 change days?
Yes.
Because unfortunately, I think we all agree the teachers need more, but that's not the agenda issue, unless I've misunderstood something. We are only talking about these 3 days that you have circled.
Yes, sir.
And,
Yes, ma'am.
just kind of wanted to bring that back because it doesn't sound like that's what we're doing. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to say, partially with what Jeff said, it does seem, if there's no reason, like Ms. Thompson said, if a lot of days in March. Well, if you move the March one to April the 1st, that gets about on a Friday. And if you move them all to Friday, it just seems like it's, am I wrong, teachers, whatever? Wouldn't you rather be half day off on a Friday than to have to get geared up, come back to school on Monday and be off a half day Monday? I mean,
Well,
I just.
Well, if you move it to April 1st,
They prefer a Friday
you-
versus.
as a star tested subject teacher, I would be totally, because you now pulling my kids out
The
2
week
days
before
before test to prep, and I
Oh,
would
'cause
be.
they-
You don't like that.
No, until I start testing the
The fifth.
subject, because it's like hands on deck after
Okay.
spring break.
True.
Um,
I think we
But-
should move the April one, the very end of April, to promote community engagement, and move it to the last Friday. Instead of the 25th, move it to the 29th, so families can get ready for
But-
Sylvan Beach Day.
but you're also 2 days out for testing. Look at that, May 2nd,
Oh, gosh.
May
true.
3rd.
That's always gonna be our issue.
Melissa's got the answer, cancel the testing.
Yeah.
I don't think
I don't think we'll get any, yeah. we won't
Do I
get
need to
any
make another
argument on
statement about the
that.
Texas
Okay.
legislature?
You know, clearly, we brought this to you, I mean, these dates are not set in stone in any way. We weren't trying to give all Mondays because we thought we might get resistance from the Mondays, and we weren't trying to give all Fridays because we thought we'd get resistance. But we're hearing some of your concerns, and,
What do the teachers
That's what
want?
I'm saying.
Yeah, we will ask.
This is better for the dates.
I mean, this is the initial, I mean, it, they have it.
Well, you're gonna get different pins depending on which subjects you're gonna teach.
We've got a DEIC meeting,
Yes.
I mean, on the Monday that we return for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And so I was going to bring back to them, you know, we just wanted to bring to you if it's could be
we don't
a
wanna be talking about it if
consideration.
it's not a
And,
consideration.
and then we are meeting on, because we're also developing next year's calendar at this time. And so we do have a meeting the Monday that we return from Thanksgiving.
And I think, and thank you, Ms. Tilley, but I think, you know, the board is, we've had conversations about these things. The biggest gift that we can give a teacher, especially during these times, these very challenging times, is time. And so, you know, we will bring this back, and we'll ask the board to kind of give us suggestions, but we'll also ask more of our staff
Yeah.
to help us, to tell us what may work.
It's-
Secondary is gonna be different than elementary, I'm telling you that,
And-
you know.
And like the February 18th one, I have no issue with, and actually, that's when, that February is a typical month where the teachers are tired, it's kinda like October for first semester, where it really starts setting in. It's the other 2 days, the relationship with is as far as in the calendar, I have issues with, but to try to give something for our teachers, is not lost on me, and so I definitely have no problems with the February 18th one, but
And I think for me personally, in the interest of time, I mean, you obviously did a lot for this. I mean, we're doing this, I don't like changing the calendar in the middle of the year. I'm just gonna tell you, I don't like it because parents are not gonna get the message, but
Yep.
anyway. But, I mean, y'all done a lot of work
Yeah.
on this. For me, this is not do or die. David's points are well taken, and instead of going out to 700 teachers and saying, what do you wanna do? And then lose all your hair, I don't think that's necessarily worth it. Because you have got a plan, and maybe we just look at the whole thing differently next year. Instead of trying to make it absolutely perfect. They're still gonna get a half a day, however you look at it.
Well, and if if I'm out of line, tell me, but as we develop the calendar for this next year, I mean, because when we developed this calendar, we had not added all of our instructional, support
Right.
and Ms. Abrams' position. I mean, we looked this way, and now we, you know, we have really grown, and I mean, there's some amazing things happening. It's just how did we build our calendar? We built our calendar based on, this calendar has been basically our same model that we have used for several years. And so I think you will find that the input for the next year's calendar takes that into, consideration.
I appreciate you sharing that and sharing just that whole context of that. The other part I think is very important for our board and all of us, the administration, to keep in mind is our staff talks to their colleagues in other districts. And we want to make certain that we are keeping up. That sounds so, and we're keeping up with what our neighbors are doing, because our teachers are asking, why are they off, right? And we're not. And so we're trying to make certain that we do things to make our teachers feel valued with the gift of time. And so we take your comments strongly, and we'll come back and bring something if that's the board's wishes, or if you choose for us not to deal with it this year. Just kind of, you can wink at me and let me know that. But we can fix some of those things that you've talked about. But I also think we need to bring some folks together and elementary and secondary and just say, hey, what does this look like to you guys based on testing and the things that you brought up? I mean, you're right. We don't want to be out a week before testing and then expect kids to walk in and test.
You don't wanna add more stress to them.
This is a dumb question, I know this. You have the first and the last day of school, Mark. Is it possible, and I know teachers gotta go, they have to start before the kids come and they spend another week to 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks after they leave. Can you put this half day, give them, if it's for them, can you give them a half day after the kids have been dismissed?
They work just the next day.
Just the next day?
All theirs is, and then they're done.
And that's usually just closing out the class.
Well, I mean, can you make,
Counselors go
so the next
longer,
day, like,
yeah.
you could make it a half day?
After the school year, well, they do have, I mean, I know this, the last day of school is a half day, and then the 27th will be a work day, and then.
Well, as I'm saying, on the work day for the teachers, like, instead of making it mandatory, they attend that whole day. Maybe that is the case, maybe it's not, maybe they go home half day already, I don't know.
Where usually
I
they
was gonna say,
close,
where are you on that?
but like,
But,
they're probably closing out their classroom, so like, once they close out the classroom, they can leave.
And they have their end of the year barbecues.
Yeah,
and
and then go.
I don't know many that say, I mean, a lot of them go home and then come back for graduation.
Ms. Tilly, okay, that's graduation.
Yes, that's what you said.
There, a lot happens that day.
Yeah.
Pretty intense.
As I said, we are, the DEIC, which is made up of parents and teachers, and administrators, they're meeting the Monday that we return from Thanksgiving at 4 o'clock. So, I will, I'm more than happy to share, your comments and get their comments and. Okay? All right.
Thank you. So, you were bringing this, I guess. Okay. No action, but bring it back a follow-up. Okay. We'll go to item 8, action on closed session items. We do not have any, so at this time, we adjourn at 7:34 p.m. Thank you all.
Another dumb question.